This video will go over the vMix overlay feature. To start with, I'll show you what an overlay is. This is a simple example that we are not going to use in the near term, but we could use in the future. Later in the video, I will go over what I think we should use to have information provided to the viewers via prelude, and postlude slides. So to begin with, when people would watch our worship normally, they'll see something like we're currently viewing with the altar and the first few pews. This is very typical. Now I'm going to demonstrate what an overlay looks like. That's the wrong one. Let's try a different one. This one here. So this is a little graphic that I made. Took a few seconds to make, very simple. We could put people's names or anything if we decide to do this at some point, but that's an overlay. In essence, the image in the background is not gone, it's still there. We still see the sanctuary, altar, and the first few pews, but we've added this graphic atonement worship and so forth. So to get rid of the overlay, there's another click of the button. I'll show you how to do that in a moment, and the overlay goes away. The way we're going to use this, as I mentioned, is for the prelude and the postlude, and we'll demonstrate that in a second. But first, let me go back to the desktop. I want to show you what it looks like. And this is actually an overlay on top of the sanctuary view, so we're going to click a button here, and I'll show you that button after I click it. So now we're seeing the actual desktop up here in the balcony. And how did I get that overlay to appear? Well, if you'll notice down here, we've got 5 channels set up. The standard one, always number one, is our Decklink SDI 4K1 on channel 1. On channel 2, I've set up a live stream prelude movie. On channel 3, I've set up a live stream postlude, also a movie. On channel 4 was that overlay that I demonstrated, was just a simple demonstration, but it could be anything useful. And then finally, this desktop capture. And to invoke any of these 4 overlays, it's as simple as clicking the button 1, 2, 3, or 4. 1, 2, 3, or 4 represents a defined overlay. And you can have many different types. I'm not going to go into those right now. But essentially, we're using full screen overlays at this point. So as long as I have number 1 clicked, we're going to see the desktop capture. I'm going to take away the desktop view in a moment and show you how I envision we could use the overlay for the prelude and the postlude. And so you're not going to see the clicks, but I'll discuss what I'm doing. And again, we're talking about clicking within each of the different channels, 2, 3, 4, 5, clicking 1, 2, 3, or 4. In this case, we're actually going to just use number 1. So I'm going to unclick number 1 on channel 5, and we'll get back to the sanctuary view. What I envision happening is when it's time for the service to start, we're going to select on channel 2 the number 1, which is overlay number 1. And you see what happened. Now we have this slideshow starting. We've immediately clicked the stream button to start the streaming. And this is the point at which we would ask Cindy to begin playing the organ. So during the hymn that she's playing, the viewer would hear the organ music and they would see the slides that are now appearing on your screen. There are several slides in here for upcoming worship. The next one, Blue Christmas. Then we're going to have Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. And then it's going to circle back around because, I didn't point out before, but in each of these channels 2 and 3, I've set the loop option. That means it just keeps playing this movie over and over again until we stop the overlay. So this is the last slide in the movie. It's going to go back to slide 1. Let's just assume Cindy's getting close to finishing. We get back to slide 1, we let it go. Or if we see that the procession is happening or there's people up on the altar, whatever, you could stop this slideshow at any time simply by turning off the overlay. So let's just assume that the procession is happening and we want to see that. I would just simply click the number 1 in channel 2 and that stops the overlay. And now we're back to the camera view. And let's just say that's what happened. We're in the camera view. Pastor's up there welcoming people, blah, blah, blah. It's just a typical live stream where you're going to use the ATEM and the PTZ optics to direct the cameras and switch back and forth between camera 5 and camera 7. You will not use vMix for most of the service just at the very beginning, and then when we get to the end, we're going to do the same thing with a different movie. So let's say we're at the end of the service, go in peace, serve the Lord, thanks be to God. What we do then is we immediately click on number 1 in channel 3, which is the postlude movie. So I click that, and it overlays with the movie for the end of the service. It's similar to the other one at the beginning. There's some different verbiage at the bottom, and then the slides are a little bit different, but similar in many ways. And again, we can let this thing loop as long as we want while Cindy's playing the music. I personally think we should just let this postlude go until she's totally finished with the music. The prelude, as I mentioned, you can use your judgment whether you cut that off while people are processing up to the altar or at some other point. We're going to play with this probably and figure out what works best, but it's really going to be your judgment. And I'm not going to let this go on and on, but it's the same thing. We've got several slides in here about upcoming worships. Let's say we're done. Cindy's finished the ending hymn, the postlude hymn. What you do at that point is simply click the stream button to stop the streaming because we're finished for the day. So I'm going to do that right now, and this video will end.